In Santa Fe, I placed the apple pie before an old man with a gold pocket watch. He asked my name. Then, just minutes later, he asked again, his voice trembling like he'd found something lost. My family flew in that same week not to hug me but to appraise my apartment, my boyfriend's wallet, and my future. I had my own invoice ready, built from years of being used, and I served it right there just as the old man revealed a secret that left my family speechless. My name is Kennedy Long. I am 28 years old, and I am a clinical operations specialist for Meridian Vitae. It is a title that sounds impressive, full of competence and regulations, and it is. I coordinate multi-site pharmaceutical trials. I manage data, protocols, and people. My job is to ensure precision. To my family, this title means something else entirely. It means I am organized. It means I am reliable. It means I am, and always have been, the free assistant. Back in Ohio, my life was a blur of other people's needs. I was the one who planned my mother's dinner parties. From the grocery list to the post-party cleanup, I was the one who babysat my sister Megan's 2 children, not for a scheduled evening, but for emergency long weekends when she needed to find herself or source new inventory for her perpetually failing boutique. I was the one who proofread my father's work emails, mediated family arguments, and remembered everyone's birthdays, anniversaries, and medication schedules. I was the family's external hard drive, their unpaid intern, their emotional pack mule. My role was so ingrained that my own achievements were treated not as milestones, but as confirmation of my capacity to do more for them. The snap didn't come as a loud crack, but as a quiet, cold realization. I received a major promotion at Meridian Vitae. It wasn't just a raise, it was a significant step up, a validation of years of late nights and relentless focus. I was being trusted to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to build and manage a new remote clinical trial hub from scratch. It was everything I had worked for. I called my mother, my voice tight with a joy I couldn't contain. "That's wonderful, dear," she said, her voice already distant, preoccupied. "Speaking of work, your father's laptop is making that noise again. Could you swing by after your shift? And Megan is completely overwhelmed. Her new shipment is a mess. She really needs your help organizing the stockroom this weekend." She'd ask herself, "But she's just so stressed." I waited. I waited for a, "Congratulations." I waited for a, "Wow, Kenny, New Mexico." I waited for a single question about my life, my future. It never came. My promotion was simply processed as, "Kennedy is doing well," which translated to, "Kennedy has more time, more energy, and probably more money to solve our problems." I hung up the phone, and the silence in my small Cleveland apartment was absolute. I looked at the gray, humid sky pressing against the window. I looked at the stack of Megan's invoices on my counter that I'd promised to look over. That night, I put in my official transfer request. 6 weeks later, I was driving west on I-70, the Ohio Valley receding in my rearview mirror until it was just a smudge of humid green. Santa Fe was the antidote. It was dry, sharp, and intentional. The light here doesn't just illuminate. It defines. It casts sharp shadows and makes the adobe walls glow like embers. My apartment wasn't huge, but it was mine. It had terracotta tiles that were cool under my feet and a small balcony that looked out over the Jemez Mountains. My day job was demanding. Building a new hub required all my focus. I was good at it. I was good at creating systems, enforcing protocols, and managing complex logistics. I was good at drawing hard lines. To save money for a down payment, and honestly, to connect with my new city in a way that had nothing to do with pharmaceuticals, I took a part-time job. I work 3 or 4 nights a week at the Coyote Sage Diner. It's a place that smells of roasting green chilies, old vinyl, and strong coffee. I tie on a canvas apron. I write down orders. I carry heavy plates, and I banter with the cooks. The work is simple. It is tangible. I bring a person a slice of pie they ordered. They eat it. They pay the bill. The transaction is clean, finite, and honest. There are no unspoken debts, no emotional IOUs. My life found a new rhythm. Weekdays were high-stakes data and global video calls. Evenings were the scent of fry oil and the clatter of plates. And in between, there was Marcus. I met Marcus Reed when he was fixing the diner's ancient, rattling ice machine. He's 33, a mechanical engineer who runs his own small biomedical device shop, Mesa Works. He builds prototypes for surgical tools, things that require a steady hand and a brilliant mind. He has an easy laugh in his hands, though often stained with machine oil. Are the gentlest I've ever known. Our relationship is as clean as the desert air. He doesn't need me to manage his life. He doesn't ask me to fix his problems. He asks me how my day was and actually listens to the answer. He sees my competence not as a resource to be tapped, but as a part of me to be admired. We hike on Sundays with my small, scruffy terrier mix, Juniper. We cook dinner together. We exist in a quiet, supportive peace I had never known. For 2 years. My phone did not ring with a family emergency. 2 entire years. 73 days. I sent the obligatory holiday texts. I sent birthday cards with generic, pleasant messages. They were always read, but almost never answered. The silence was a balm. I was healing. Then, my Aunt Laurel came to visit. She's my mother's sister, the one sane, kind branch on a toxic family tree. She had always seen me, really seen me, even as a kid. Her visit was lovely. It was genuine. She didn't ask me for anything. She just wanted to see my new life. She loved my apartment. "Oh, Kenny," she said, standing in my small kitchen, the afternoon sun hitting the warm pine cabinets. "You've built such a beautiful, peaceful nest here. I am so truly proud of you." Her pride felt different. It was real. It wasn't a prelude to a request. She took a few photos on her phone. One of us toasting with coffee mugs, one of Juniper asleep on the patterned rug, and one of the kitchen, capturing the rustic cabinets, the colorful tiles, and a sliver of the mountain view from the window. She posted them to her social media later that week. Her caption was sweet, just a gushing aunt, proud of her niece's new life in Santa Fe. And that's when the probes began. The comments on her post, from my mother, from my cousins, from Megan. "Wow, that kitchen is huge. Must be nice. Is that granite? What does a place like that even cost in Santa Fe?" "Aunt Laurel, did you see her car? Someone said Meridian Vitae gives big relocation bonuses. She looks healthy. That desert air must be agreeing with her." It was like watching sharks circle a drop of blood in the water. They were testing, calculating. That night, my phone, silent for 2 years, lit up like a slot machine. First, Megan. "Kenny. Oh my God. Your place looks amazing. I miss you so much. We have to talk." Then, my mother. "Kennedy, honey, I just saw Laurel's pictures. I cried. I was just so proud. I can't believe how long it's been. We've missed you terribly." I stared at the messages, a cold, familiar dread coiling in my stomach. I didn't respond immediately. An hour later, the final text came, from my mother, in the family group chat. It settled. "We all miss Kennedy too much. We just booked tickets. We're flying in this weekend. We'll land Saturday afternoon. Can't wait to see the new place and catch up. We love you." It was not a question. It was not a request. It was a royal decree. They were coming. I sat on my balcony, the cool desert air raising goosebumps on my arms. Juniper nudged my hand. Sensing the shift in me, I looked at the text message. They weren't coming for me. They were coming for the math. They had seen the pine cabinets, the mountain view, the word pharmaceuticals, and they had done the calculation. They had sensed a new resource, untapped and thriving, and they were coming to make a withdrawal. A moment later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Sal, my manager from the diner. "Hey, Kennedy. Weird one. Got a last-minute VIP booking for Saturday night. Some big shot from out of town. Lawyer called and everything. Wants the quiet corner table. No fuss. Needs our best server. You good to take an extra shift? I'll make it worth your while. I typed back yes, without a second of hesitation. I needed it. I needed the armor of my apron. I needed the legitimate, transactional excuse of, I have to work. It was a boundary, bought and paid for. I would be busy. I would be unavailable. I would not be the welcome wagon, the tour guide, or the concierge for their emotional audit. The night before they were due to arrive, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, listening to the high desert wind whistle past my window. It sounded clean, like it could scour things down to the bone. I am not their fixer, I whispered into the dark, to Juniper, to myself. Not this time. I got up, went to my desk, and pulled out a box of crisp, white business envelopes. I turned on my printer. I scrolled back through 2 years of text messages. I screenshotted the read 10:14 p.m. on the text I sent about getting Juniper, the read 8:02 a.m. on my happy birthday dad message, the absolute deafening silence that met my text a year ago. Just landed a big project at work, feeling really proud today. I printed them. I went into my email and found the receipts. The one for $600, when I loaned Megan money for a deposit on a pop-up shop that never materialized. The credit card statement showing the 4 days of catering I'd ordered and paid for during my father's retirement party, a party I was also expected to organize and host. The invoice for the emergency plumber I'd called and paid for at my parents' house while I was on a work deadline. Because they just couldn't handle the stress, I folded each one. I slipped them into the envelopes. They weren't blackmail. They were invoices, a clear, itemized ledger of services rendered, of emotional labor billed, of debts long past due. They were my own set of protocols. The service bell in the diner kitchen has a sharp, clear ding. It's a sound of summons, a sound that means, order up. Get moving. Someone is waiting. My whole life, my family had been hitting that bell, and I had been trained to run. This weekend, I thought, stacking the white envelopes neatly on my desk, I finally get to decide who rings the bell, and I will be the one presenting the check. The high desert sun was low enough by 4 p.m. to turn the world to honey. It saturated the adobe walls of the old buildings on Cerrillos Road, making the brown stucco glow with a deep, liquid warmth. I walked from my apartment, feeling the dry air on my skin, a stark contrast to the oppressive, damp chill I remembered from Ohio. This air was clean. It demanded nothing. I got to the Coyote Sage Diner 20 minutes early, the way I always do. I pushed through the heavy wooden door, the small bell above it announcing my arrival with a cheerful, metallic jingle. "Hey, Kennedy," Sal, the night manager, called from behind the counter, not looking up from his order tickets. "Hey, Sal." I went to the staff room, a tiny closet smelling of bleach and old coffee, and pulled my canvas apron over my head. I tied the strings tight around my waist. The knot was a ritual. It was the moment Kennedy Long, clinical operations specialist, stepped aside, and Kennedy, the waitress, took over. This Kennedy had simpler goals: keep the coffee hot, get the orders right, clear the plates. This Kennedy was armor. My phone buzzed in my back pocket as I went to the service station to polish silverware. I pulled it out. A text from Marcus. "Showtime." "Huh? Just remember you are not their ATM. You are not their fixer. You are the high desert. You are expensive." A small smile touched my lips. He understood. He saw the years of erosion they had caused, and he saw the bedrock I was trying to become. I typed back. "Copy that. Mesa Works, going dark." I silenced my phone and slipped it deep into my apron. I focused on the forks. One by one, I buffed them with a clean cloth until they gleamed under the warm, yellow lights of the diner. They felt cool and solid in my hand. Real. By 6. The diner was full. The Saturday night rush. It was a perfect mix of my new world. Tourists, sunburnt and dazed, wearing expensive hiking gear, sat next to tables of local artists, their faces weathered like the mountains. their hands adorned with heavy turquoise and silver. The air grew thick and wonderful, layered with the sharp, smoky perfume of roasting green chilies, the undeniable scent of Santa Fe, cut with the darker notes of burnt coffee and sweet cinnamon from the pie warmer. The clatter of plates and the low, steady hum of dozens of conversations was a symphony. I moved through it, a part of it. I was no longer the stressed, silent girl in the corner of a loud Ohio living room. Here, I had purpose. At 6:15, the VIPs arrived. They did not make a sound. The door opened, and they were simply there. Sal immediately moved from behind the counter. All business. It was two men. One was young, maybe 30, in a sharp dark suit that looked out of place among the denim and flannel. He held a slim leather briefcase, and his eyes scanned the room once, quickly, cataloging exits and threats. A lawyer. The other man was the center of gravity. He was older, perhaps in his late 70s, but he stood straight. He wore a simple, beautifully cut gray vest over a crisp white shirt and dark trousers. His hair was silver, and his face was kind, but lined with an authority that felt old and deep. As Sal led them to the quietest corner table my station, I saw the thin gold chain looped into his vest pocket. A pocket watch. I gave them a minute to settle, filled 2 glasses with ice water, and approached. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Coyote Sage. My name is Kennedy, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." The lawyer looked at me, gave a curt, professional nod, and opened his menu. The old man, however, smiled. It was a gentle, disarming expression. He didn't even look at the menu resting in front of him. "Kennedy," he repeated, testing the name. "That's a lovely name. Tonight, my girl. I don't want to read a list. I want you to bring me whatever dish you like the most, the one that means something." I blinked. It was an unusual request. I thought for a second. "That would be the apple pie," I said. "Chef's recipe. It's not too sweet. The crust is sharp cheddar and lard, very crisp. The apples are tart." I paused, then added, more to myself than to him, "It's a recipe for people who don't get listened to very often. It makes a lot of noise when you eat it." The old man's smile widened. His eyes, a very clear and pale blue, seemed to hold my gaze. "Then the apple pie it is, and a black coffee. Robert," he said to the lawyer. "We'll have the— Robert, what will you have?" "The grilled chicken sandwich, unsweetened iced tea," the lawyer said, not looking up. "Very good." As I turned to leave, the old man spoke again. "I'm sorry. What was your name again?" I turned back. "Kennedy, sir." He nodded, very slowly, as if he were memorizing something far more important than a waitress's name. "Kennedy, yes, thank you." I put the order in, the ticket spinning on the line, and went about my other tables. I refilled coffees, cleared plates, ran a credit card. I felt calm. The diner was my territory. I was competent here. When I brought the water pitcher back to the corner table, the old man was looking out the window, his gold watch now resting in his palm. He seemed to be counting the seconds. The lawyer was typing silently into his phone. I refilled the lawyer's iced tea. As I reached for the old man's water glass, he looked up at me, his face suddenly clouded with a strange, intense emotion. "Forgive me," he said, and his voice was lower now, and unsteady. What did you say your name was?" I froze, the pitcher in my hand. "It's Kennedy, sir. Kennedy Long." His eyes filled, just slightly, a shimmer of moisture blurring the pale blue. He looked down at the watch in his hand, then back up at my face, studying my eyes, the line of my jaw. He seemed utterly lost, as if I were a ghost he both recognized and feared. He just nodded, unable to speak, and I, thrown but still on the clock, just nodded back. "I'll check on that pie for you." I walked away, a prickle of unease running down my spine. The interaction was strange, intensely personal, and I had no category for it. I was halfway to the kitchen when the front bell didn't just jingle. It slammed open, crashing against the wall. A wall of noise and cold air hit the diner, Every head turned. My family was here. It was my mother. Her coat already half off. Her voice pitched to Carrie. My father, looking bewildered and already pulling his phone from his pocket. And my sister, Megan, holding her phone up high, already live streaming. Behind them, her two kids, wound up from the plane and the sugar, immediately broke free and started chasing each other around the restaurant's entrance. There she is, my mother shouted, spotting me, as if I were a lost piece of luggage. She dropped her bags and marched toward me, not for a hug, but for an appraisal. Kennedy. My goodness, you look better, much better. The air agrees with you. Her eyes darted around the full diner, assessing the crowd, the cash register. This is a cute little place you work. Now, how many rooms did you say your apartment has? We couldn't remember if you said 2 or 3. She was already past me, heading for the table. Sal had been forced to push together for them. Megan followed, her phone panning across the room. Santa Fe is so rustic. You guys, just look at this. It's so authentic. Honestly, I could see myself opening a boutique here. The vibe is just me. My father had already sat down, oblivious, and turned on a football game on his phone. The tinny, loud commentary of the game immediately filled the air, battling with the diner's quiet music. Jason Maya. Stop it, Megan yelled at her kids. Without any real heat, the kids ignored her, weaving between tables, shrieking. One of them, Jason, ran straight to the service station, yanked open a cabinet door, and started pulling out stacks of napkins, throwing them like confetti. The entire diner was staring. I felt a hot flush of shame. The old, familiar shame. Creep up my neck. The old Kennedy would have died. The old Kennedy would have rushed over, apologizing to everyone, grabbing the napkins, placating her mother, taking the kids' coats, all while trying to take her family's drink orders. I did not. I took a breath. I felt the weight of the apron, the solid presence of Marcus's words in my pocket. I was not in their living room. This was not my fault. I walked over to Jason, who was reaching for the sugar packets. I knelt. Hey, bud, I said, my voice quiet but firm. He stopped, surprised. We don't run in here, and we don't open the cabinets. This is Auntie's workplace. I didn't yell. I didn't grab. I just stated the fact. I stood up and looked at my sister. Megan, put your kids in the booth, now. I looked at my father. Dad, headphones, or the game goes off. You are in a restaurant. I looked at my mother. I will be with you when I can. I have other tables. My mother's smile froze. Megan looked offended. My father just grunted and lowered the volume by 1 notch. Ding! The service bell from the kitchen rang. Sharp and clear. My pie was up. I turned my back on the chaos of my family. I did not apologize for them. I did not manage their entrance. I walked away from their table and headed back toward the kitchen pass. As I did, I crossed the sight line of the corner table. The old man, Mr. Pierce, was watching me. He wasn't watching my family. He was watching me. His expression was unreadable, intense, and deeply, unsettlingly warm. It was a look that felt, in a way I could not possibly explain, entirely familiar. I picked up the slice of apple pie. The crust was a perfect, flaky golden brown. The aroma of cinnamon and sharp apples cut through the heavier scents of the diner. I added the small pitcher of cream, placed the black coffee and the pie on my tray, and headed to the corner. Here we are, I said, placing the pie in front of Mr. Pierce. And the black coffee. It looks magnificent. Kennedy, thank you, he said, his eyes already on the pie. I nodded and turned to leave. As I took a step away, the lawyer, Robert, cleared his throat. It was a quiet, precise sound. Miss Long. I paused. Yes. He gestured with his chin toward the side door that led to the small, empty patio. A brief word, if you have a moment, outside. It was not a request. I glanced at Sal, who was busy at the register. I glanced at my family's table. My mother was in the middle of a loud, gesturing story for my father, who was watching his phone. Megan was texting, and the kids were, mercifully, coloring the paper placemats. I was in the clear for a moment. I pushed open the door, and the lawyer followed me out. The evening air had cooled instantly, the temperature dropping as the sun disappeared completely. The sky was a deep, bruised purple. The sounds of the diner faded, replaced by the distant hiss of traffic on the main road. Robert stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was all angles and expensive wool. "Miss Long, I am Mr. Pierce's legal counsel. I felt I should clarify something." I waited, my apron feeling thin in the sudden cold. "Mr. Alden Pierce has an exceptionally sharp mind," the lawyer said, his voice low and formal. "His memory is, for all intents and purposes, photographic. He does not forget details. He does not misplace facts." A chill that had nothing to do with the air ran over my skin. I knew what was coming. "He never asks for a person's name twice." Robert continued, his eyes fixed on me. "In the decade I have worked for him, I have never seen it happen. He only repeats a question like that, especially a name, when something has profoundly destabilized him, when it is of critical importance." He let the words hang in the air. He was warning me, or he was fishing. I couldn't tell which. My clinical operations mind clicked on this was an unscheduled data point, a protocol deviation. I summoned the polite, professional mask I used for difficult doctors and demanding executives. "Thank you for letting me know. Mr. Pierce's health is, of course, his own concern. I'm just here to serve him his pie." I gave him a tight, social smile. "If you'll excuse me, I have other tables." I left him on the patio and pushed back into the warmth and noise of the diner. My heart was hammering. Critically important. I looked at the old man in the corner, who was slowly, thoughtfully, taking his first bite of pie. His eyes were closed, as if in prayer. The chaos from table 12, my family's table, immediately yanked me back to reality. My mother was flagging down a different waitress, a new girl named Tanya. Excuse me, dear," my mother called, snapping her fingers. I cringed. "We need more iced tea here, and another basket of that bread, and 2 more slices of the cherry pie. My daughter," she said, hooking a thumb in my general direction, "is paying for this table, so just add it to her bill." Tanya looked at me, confused, her notepad hovering. I walked over. "Tanya, I've got this. Go ahead and check on table 4. Tanya fled. Grateful. I turned to my mother, my order pad in my hand. "What did you need?" "More tea, 2 cherry pies, and the bread," my mother said. "And honestly, Kennedy, the service is a little slow. That nice old man got his pie before we even got our refills." "He ordered pie," I said, my voice flat. "You ordered 3 full entrees. They are still being cooked. Well, just hurry it up, and tell them not to burn the fries this time." I walked away from them, not to the kitchen, but to the POS terminal tucked by the bar. The screen glowed. I opened my active tables. There was table 7, Pierce. I hit a button and created a new check. I labeled it Table 12, Long. I carefully moved the entrees my mother and father had ordered, the kids' meals, and the extra pies onto the new, separate ticket. The digital sound of the split was a small, satisfying click. It was a firewall. "That's a pretty complicated system," a voice said next to my ear. I stiffened. It was Megan. She was leaning over the partition, squinting at the screen, her phone in her hand. "What do you get? Like, minimum wage plus tips? I bet tips are good in Santa Fe." "People have money here," she fished, trying to sound casual. "How much an hour is it? $12.15. "It's enough," I said, tapping the screen to finalize the split. "I'm just curious," she pressed. "I'm thinking about my boutique. Maybe I could get a small space. I'd need to hire staff. What's the going rate for, basic labor?" Basic labor. The word stung. All those weekends I'd spent as her basic labor, hauling boxes, tagging clothes, managing her spreadsheets, all for free. You'd have to check the state's labor board website, I said, pulling the new ticket from my kitchen. Kenny, my father's voice boomed from the table. He was waving me over, his phone still in his hand. The game muted for a moment. I walked to their booth, my notepad a shield. Yes, Dad. He leaned forward, lowering his voice into what he thought was a confidential rumble, which was still loud enough for the next table to hear. That young man who dropped you off. The one you said you were dating, Marcus? What about him? He's an engineer. You said, has his own shop, Mesa Works. He said the name like he'd been practicing it. What does a guy like that pull in a year after taxes? I stared at him. It was so blunt, so nakedly transactional, that I almost laughed. They had come here to do an audit. This was part of the calculation. They were assessing my assets, and Marcus was now a line item. I am not a bank statement, Dad, I said. My voice was quiet, but it was made of steel. His face darkened. It's a simple question. Kennedy, we're your family. We worry about your stability. Is that a crime? My stability is fine. My job pays me, and I pay my own bills. My boyfriend's income is his own business. So, you don't even know, my mother chimed in, her eyes sharp. You're living with a man, and you don't know his finances. That's not smart. Kennedy, I am not living with him, I said, and I'm not having this conversation. Ding. The bell, the kitchen, it saved me. I spun on my heel and walked to the pass. It was the lawyer's grilled chicken sandwich. I put it on my tray, along with the 2 extra cherry pies for table 12. I dropped the pies at my family's table without a word, ignoring my mother's huff of annoyance, and proceeded to the corner. Here is your grilled chicken, I said to Robert. Thank you, he said. Mr. Pierce had finished his pie. He was dabbing his lips with a napkin, his pale blue eyes on me again, that same, intense, searching look. Kennedy, he said, his voice soft. Please, sit, just for a moment, if you're allowed. I glanced at Sal. He was watching, but he nodded. It was the VIP table. After all, I perched uneasily on the edge of the empty chair at their table. You've come to Santa Fe from somewhere, he said. It wasn't a question. You're not from here. I can hear it in your voice. A little bit of the Midwest. Ohio, I said. I'm from just outside Cleveland. Ohio, he repeated, tasting the word. And what brought you all the way out here? To the desert, a new start. I felt the pull to tell him, to say, I ran away from a family that used me like a tool, but I gave him the professional answer. My job, I work for a pharmaceutical company, Meridian Vitae. I'm in clinical operations. I was promoted to run a new remote trial hub here. His smile was sad. Clinical operations. That sounds very important, very precise. He picked up his spoon, the one he'd used for the pie, and turned it over and over in his fingers. He was looking at my face, but not in a way that felt creepy. It was analytical. He was studying the shape of my eyes, the bridge of my nose, and, I realized, my cheekbones. He must have seen me notice, because he looked down. He reached into his vest and pulled out a worn, dark leather wallet. It was old, soft with age. He fumbled with it for a moment, his hands not entirely steady, and opened it. He wasn't trying to show me, but from my angle, I could see the photograph tucked into the plastic sleeve. It was an old picture, faded and yellowed at the edges, a young woman, maybe in her early 20s. From the clothes and the feathered hair, it had to be from the 1980s. She was laughing, her head tilted back, her hair a wild, dark cloud, and her face, my breath caught in my throat. It was like looking at a younger, softer version of myself, the same high cheekbones, the same shape of the eyes. It was uncanny. He looked at the photo, then back at my face. His own was etched with a profound, aching sorrow. My apologies, he said, his voice thick. You must think me a prying old fool. It's just, you remind me of someone I lost a very long time ago. He tucked the wallet away. but his hand was trembling. He placed it on the table, near the gold pocket watch. "What is your mother's name?" he asked. The question hit me like a physical blow. It was too much. Too fast. Too personal. All my defenses, already high from my family, snapped into place. "Laura," I said. The word was clipped. Cold. "My mother's name is Laura." Mr. Pierce's face crumpled slightly. He looked confused, and then deeply embarrassed. "Oh, of course. Laura. A lovely name. Please, forgive my intrusion. Miss Long, I am overtired." His hand, still shaking, went to the watch, his thumb rubbing the smooth gold surface as if for comfort. Ding! The kitchen bell. It was the entrees for table 12. The timing was almost comical. "Excuse me," I said, standing up, grateful for the escape. "Your food is ready." I turned my back and walked quickly to the kitchen pass. I loaded the heavy plates of burger, a chicken fried steak, a club sandwich onto my tray. As I lifted it, I heard Mr. Pierce's voice, a low, urgent whisper, directed at his lawyer. "It's the wrong name, Robert, but the face. My God, the face. It could be her." I hoisted the heavy tray onto my shoulder, the plates warm against my skin, the smell of the burger, the fried steak, the crispy club sandwich. It was honest food. I approached table 12. My family stopped their hushed, urgent conference as I drew near. "All right," I said, my voice all diner professional. "We have the club sandwich for Mom, the BLTCH, that's the bacon, lettuce, tomato, cheese, and hatch chile for Dad, and the chicken fried steak, gravy on the side, for Megan. Kids' meals will be right out." I distributed the plates with economic, precise movements. My mother stared at her sandwich as if it were a complex legal document she was about to contest. Megan just pushed her food around with her fork. My father took one large, angry bite of his. The silence at the table was heavy, loaded. This was it. The overture was over. My mother put her napkin down. "Kennedy, we didn't fly all the way out here to this desert to eat fried food. We are in a crisis." I stood back, my empty tray held against my chest like a shield. "Oh," Megan's eyes immediately filled with tears. They were genuine, I suppose, but they were also a tool. She had always been able to cry on command. "It's the store, Kenny. It's all gone. The pandemic, the suppliers, everything. I'm ruined." "Your sister," my father said, putting his sandwich down, "is in a great deal of trouble. She tried her best, but it wasn't enough." My mother leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if the other diners were spies. "The landlord is suing her for breaking the lease, for the back rent, for everything." She took a deep, shuddering breath, the kind she used before delivering the killing blow. "She owes $41,800, and they want it by the 1st of next month. 41,800. The number was so specific, it was the result of their calculations, the sum of their panic. I remained silent, my face perfectly still. I didn't gasp. I didn't say, "Oh my God." I just waited. My lack of an immediate, horrified reaction seemed to throw my mother off her rhythm. "Well," she snapped, "aren't you going to say anything?" "I'm listening," I said. "Listening," she scoffed. "Kennedy, this is your sister. She's about to lose her house. Her children." "That's not true. Mom," Megan sniffled. "They can't take the house. Yet." My mother waved a hand, dismissing the distinction. "It's a disaster, and we have been sitting here all night, trying to figure out a solution, and it's very simple." Here it came, the proposal, the reason for the flight, the fake pride, the invasion. My mother looked at me, her eyes narrowing with a kind of predatory logistics. "It's simple. You're doing very well. This new job, this bonus, you must have received for moving, and this apartment. You told Laurel it has 2 bedrooms. That's too much space for one girl. She laid it out, piece by piece. You sell the apartment. The market here is high. You said it yourself. You move in with that boyfriend, Marcus. He seems capable. He has his own business. You won't be on the street. You take the profit from the sale, and you give it to your sister. You pay the debt. You help your family. It's the only sensible thing to do. I looked at her. I looked at Megan, who was now staring at her plate, the picture of a tragic victim. I looked at my father, who was nodding grimly, as if this were a sound financial plan. The diner sounds around me seemed to rush in and then recede. I could hear the clink of a fork on a plate from 3 tables away. I could hear the low laugh of one of the artists. I could hear the hiss of the flat-top grill from the kitchen. My world, the world I had built, was functioning, sane, and real. And then there was this island of toxic, entitled insanity. I set the empty tray down on a nearby bus station. I wiped my hands slowly on my canvas apron. No, I said. It was not a yell. It was not a plea. It was a single, clean, clinical fact. My mother's face went white. What? What did you just say? I said no. I repeated. I turned to my sister. I am sorry your business failed. Megan, that is a terrible thing, but I am not selling my home to fix it. My God, Kennedy, my mother whispered, her voice laced with venom. Your own sister. I got back on my feet alone, I said, my voice quiet, but carrying in the sudden silence of our table. When I was broke and starting out in Cleveland, I worked 3 jobs. I never asked any of you for $1. I got myself here. I built this life. It is not a community fund. How dare you, my mother said, her voice rising. How dare you throw that in our faces? Family is supposed to help each other. We raised you. We fed you. We paid for your college. You don't get to just run away and hoard your success while your own blood is suffering. You're right, Mom, I said. Family is supposed to help. I reached down to the floor, where I had stashed my messenger bag. I had put it there when I clocked in. Right by my station, I unzipped the main flap, and I pulled out the white business envelopes, all 3 of them. I placed them on the table, next to the half-eaten sandwiches. What is this? My father demanded. Are you serving us a bill? In a way, I said. I pushed the first envelope toward my mother. You're right. We should help each other. Which is why, at Christmas 2 years ago, when Megan's entire online store was about to collapse, I canceled my flight to see my friend in Tucson. I spent 4 full days, not celebrating, but in your unheated garage, packing boxes, printing labels, and driving to the post office. I did your holiday fulfillment, Megan, for free, while I was on my own paid time off from Meridian. Megan flushed a deep, ugly red. I was overwhelmed. Kennedy, you offered? I offered because you were crying, I said. I slid the second envelope onto the table. This one, last June. You and Dad needed a break. You drove Jason and Maya to my apartment at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. You said it would be for a day. You turned off your phones and went to a casino. For 6 days. Both kids had fevers and an ear infection. I used all 5 of my sick days for that year, plus a personal day, to care for your children. Megan, I almost got a formal warning at work for missing a major project deadline. We paid you back for the medicine, my mother interjected. You paid me back for the Tylenol, I corrected her. Not for the 6 days of my career you put at risk. I put the last envelope down. And this is the receipt for the $600 I advanced you. Megan, for the deposit on that perfect pop-up space, the one you decided not to take, and the money you forgot to pay back. My voice was still soft. It was still my waitress voice, calm, polite, and completely devoid of emotion. You're right. Mom, family helps. I have been helping. I have been the family's free assistant, financial planner, and emergency childcare service for my entire adult life. The difference is, when I needed help when I was struggling, when I got my promotion, When I moved here alone, the only thing I got was silence. My read receipts are in those envelopes. 2. Megan was speechless, staring at the envelopes as if they were snakes. This is beneath you, Kennedy, my father said, his voice a low growl. Keeping score. It's sick. I learned it from you, I said, looking him dead in the eye. You just taught me to keep the score in my head, to call it love. I'm just better at itemizing. He recoiled, as if I'd slapped him. You've got a big promotion, he pressed, shifting tactics. A relocation bonus. You have the means. A family does not abandon its own. A family, I said, my voice finally hardening, doesn't only remember you exist when they need the bank password. The words hung in the air. The silence was absolute. My mother's face was a mask of thunderous rage. The diner had become terribly quiet. The table of artists next to us was openly staring, their forks frozen halfway to their mouths. A tourist couple was pretending to read their menus, but they were listening to every word. This was the show they hadn't paid for. I saw Sal at the register. He caught my eye. He looked pained, angry on my behalf. He gave a small, almost imperceptible jerk of his head toward the back office. You good? I nodded once. I'm good. Stay put. In the corner. Mr. Alden Pierce was watching. He wasn't eating. His hands were clasped on the table. He was watching my family, and his face was etched with a deep, profound sadness. He looked like a man watching a ghost, like he was seeing a scene from his own past replayed with a new, younger cast. The lawyer, Robert, was not watching. He was looking down, with a discreet, practiced motion. He pulled a slim black notebook and an expensive-looking pen from his breast pocket. He clicked the pen and wrote something down, a single, short line. He was, I realized with a jolt, documenting. You're being so cold. Megan suddenly burst out, her voice cracking. So, clinical, is that what your big job taught you? To treat your family like a failed experiment? She gesticulated wildly, her hand flying out. It connected with a small ceramic statue of a howling coyote that sat on the partition between the booths. It was a cheap, kitschy piece of diner decor. It tumbled off the ledge and hit the hard terracotta tile floor. It shattered into a dozen pieces. The sound was sharp, violent. My nephew, Jason, flinched, bracing for an adult to yell. My mother glared at the broken pieces as if they had personally offended her. Megan just gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The old Kennedy would have died. She would have apologized to Sal, to the guests, to God. She would have promised to pay for it, groveled, and probably started crying. I just sighed. The sound was weary, coming from a place deep inside me. I didn't look at any of them. I didn't scold Megan. I didn't comfort the kids. I turned, walked to the main service station, and retrieved the dustpan and brush. I knelt on the floor, my apron spreading out, and calmly, methodically, began sweeping the broken pieces of the coyote into the pan. The scrape of the brush on the tile was the only sound. I stood up. I walked to the trash can by the kitchen door, emptied the dustpan, and hung it back on its hook. I wiped my hands on my apron. Then I turned back to the table. Well, my mother demanded, her voice low and hissing. Are you going to stop playing with the trash and answer your sister? Are you going to help us? Or are you going to destroy this family over a little bit of money? I looked at my watch, the cheap, plastic one I wore for work. It is 7:45, I said, my voice clear and projecting. My shift ends at 10. I am at my job. We are not having this conversation right now. You are disturbing the other guests, and you have broken the restaurant's property. I will speak to you tomorrow. Not here, and not tonight. I turned to walk away. Kennedy Long, you stop right there, my father commanded. I stopped. I turned back. My mother's eyes were blazing. She was standing up now, leaning over the booth. How dare you, she seethed, her voice shaking with a rage that was terrifyingly familiar. After everything we have done for you, you would choose this. greasy spoon. Over your own mother, your own sister, you would embarrass us in front of these strangers. She spat the word. You're setting boundaries. Kennedy, is that the word you learned in New Mexico, boundaries? You don't get to set boundaries with your family. I just looked at her. I didn't say a word. The old man in the corner closed his eyes. I held my mother's furious gaze for a full 5 seconds. Then, I turned my back on her. I walked away, my back straight, toward the kitchen, where the bell was ringing, and a new, clean, honest order was waiting. The unsaid answer hung in the air, louder than any of her threats. Watch me. My defiance left a vacuum. The silence at table 12 was so absolute, it felt like a hole in the fabric of the diner. My mother sat back down, her face white, her jaw set so tight I could see the muscles knotting. My father picked up his BLTCH and took a bite with a violence that was purely performative. Megan just stared at the white envelopes on the table, her tears instantly dry. I went back to work. I felt a strange, cold lightness. The worst had happened. The confrontation I had dreaded for 2 years was here, and I had not dissolved. I had not cried. I had not written a check. I went into the kitchen, picked up an order for table 9, and delivered it. I refilled water glasses for a foretop of tourists. I was moving on pure adrenaline and clinical training. Protocol, follow the steps, do the job. I returned to my station to find my mother flagging me down again. Her rage had been packed away, replaced by a brittle, saccharine pleasantry that was infinitely more dangerous. Kennedy, honey, she said, her voice a sweet, false flute. Since we're all here, and we're waiting for you to finish your little shift. I'm not finishing soon, I said. I get off at 10. Well, fine. While we wait, the kids would like milkshakes, chocolate, both of them. And Megan needs another coffee. This one is cold. She pushed the half-full mug toward me. And I'll try that apple pie you were so fond of, the one that old man liked so much. She smiled, a thin, reptilian expression. Just put it all on our tab, dear. Our tab. The implication was clear. My tab. The family account I had apparently been funding my entire life. I just nodded. I wrote on my pad. 2 chocolate shakes, 1 coffee, 1 apple pie. I did not argue. I did not engage. I turned, walked to the POS terminal, and methodically added every single item to the check for table 12, long. The total on that ticket grew. An hour passed. The diner began to thin out. My family sat there, a silent, poisonous cloud, picking at their food, which was now cold. The kids, sensing the tension, were restless and whiny. My mother and Megan spoke in low, urgent whispers, their heads bent together. My father just stared at his phone, his face a mask of stubborn anger. Finally, just after 9, my mother caught my eye and made the gesture, a sharp, slicing motion across her throat. The universal sign for check, please. I went to the printer. It buzzed, spitting out 2 long, itemized receipts. I separated them. Table 7. Table 12. I took the small black tray, placed the check for table 12 on it, face down, and set it in the exact center of their table, directly in front of my father. He ignored it. My mother, with a sigh of exasperation, snatched it up. She flipped it over. Her eyes scanned the list, the entrees, the side orders, the extra pies, the sodas, the milkshakes. Her eyes went to the bottom line, the total. I could see the moment her brain processed the number. Kennedy, she said. Her voice was so quiet it was barely audible. It was the quietest I had ever heard her be in public, and it was the most terrifying sound in the world. Yes, Mom. What is this? It's your check, I said. She looked up, her eyes like 2 chips of ice. You've made a mistake. You've charged us. For everything. For the milkshakes. There's no mistake. You ordered it. You pay for it. We are family, she hissed. The word was a curse. You do not charge your family for a meal. We are your guests. You are our daughter. I am your waitress, I corrected her. And I am not your host. I did not invite you here. I am not paying this, she stated, throwing the check back on the table. You will take this off your little computer. You will comp this meal. For your family, who flew all the way across the country to see you. I met her stare. The old Kennedy would have crumbled. She would have apologized, her face burning with shame, and run to Sal to void the check, promising to pay it out of her own tips. No, I said. What? I said no. I picked up the check, my hand perfectly steady. You are right, Mom. We are family. I looked at her, at my father, at Megan. And for 28 years, I have been the bill that this family has refused to pay. Tonight, you're picking up your own check. My father threw his napkin onto his plate. This is unbelievable. This is the most selfish, disgusting display I have ever seen after all we've done for you. Pay the bill, Dad. As this final quiet detonation was happening, I was aware of movement in my peripheral vision. Mr. Pierce and his lawyer, Robert, were standing. They had been watching the entire exchange, their own check untouched on their table. I was mortified, not by my family's behavior, but that he had been forced to witness it. I grabbed the check for table 7 and hurried over, my professional mask slipping back into place. Mr. Pierce, I am so profoundly sorry for the disturbance, I said, my voice low. I apologize for this. Here is your check, sir, for whenever you are ready. He shook his head, his gentle, pale blue eyes filled with a sorrow that mirrored my own. My dear, we should be apologizing to you. You should not have to endure such calculation in your place of work. He gestured to the side door. Robert and I were just saying, it's a lovely, clear evening. We will move to the patio to finish our coffee. We do not want to intrude. Oh, sir, you're not intruding. That's not necessary, I stammered, the shame returning. It is, he said, his voice kind but firm. He placed his hand on the table. Underneath it was a slim, dark leather billfold. It was not his main wallet. It was the kind a man carried just for cash. He slid it toward me. This, he said, is for you, and for the kitchen, and for your manager, for the broken coyote, and the disruption to his evening. He looked at me, and his gaze was so direct, so full of understanding, it almost broke me. You serve your tables with the hands of someone who has lifted an entire family on their back. I recognize that strength. It is a terrible and beautiful thing. Do not let them break it. Before I could say anything, before I could even process his words, he and Robert walked past me, pushed open the door, and settled at one of the cold, wrought iron tables outside. I stood there, my heart hammering. I opened the leather billfold. Inside was cash, a crisp stack of it. I fumbled, counting it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 $100 bills. $500. On a check that was, at most, $30. I pressed my lips together, refusing to cry. It wasn't the money, it was the words. I recognized that strength. He saw me. He didn't see a cold, selfish daughter. He saw a strong one. I took a deep, shuddering breath. I composed myself. I walked straight to the kitchen pass, where Juan and the other cook were plating the last orders of the night. Juan, I said, my voice clear, this is from the man at table 7. He said this is for the kitchen, for all of you. I passed 2 of the $100 bills over the stainless steel pass. Juan's eyes went wide. He looked at the money, then at me, then back at the money. He gave me a single, respectful nod. Gracias, Kennedy. He is a good man. I then walked to the register, where Sal was watching me, his face a mixture of pity and anger. Sal, I said, holding out another $100 bill. This is from Mr. Pierce. He wanted to pay for the broken coyote and for the floor show. Sal put his hand up. Kid, I'm not taking that. That's your tip. You've earned it 20 times over tonight. He insisted, I said. He wanted you to have it. For the diner. Sal looked at the money, then at my family's table, and his face hardened. He took the bill. Fine. It's for the staff party. Thank you. Kennedy. I folded the remaining $200 and slid them deep into my apron pocket. My hands were shaking. My family, of course, had seen all of it. They were still at their table, my father now digging angrily in his wallet. They had seen me walk from the corner table. They had seen the billfold. They had seen me pass money to the kitchen, and again to my manager. "Would you look at that?" Megan sneered, her voice loud enough for me to hear as I walked past. "She's performing for him, putting on this whole poor abused daughter show. She's acting, just to get a big tip out of that rich old man. It's disgusting, absolutely pathetic." My mother shushed her, but her eyes were not on me. They were on the patio, on the old man sitting in the dark. She watched me pocket the remaining cash. She saw the deference Sal had shown me. She saw the kitchen staff nod. The gears were turning. This was a new calculation. Just as the scene felt like it couldn't get any more saturated with tension. The front bell of the diner jingled. I looked up, my heart sinking. Not now. Please, not now. It was Marcus. He was in his work clothes, jeans and a navy polo with the small, neat Mesa Works logo embroidered on the chest. He was holding a small, intricate piece of milled metal in his hand. He wasn't here for me. He spotted a man sitting alone at the counter. Another regular, an engineer from the National Labs. "Dave," Marcus called out, his voice easy and warm. "Here's that custom flange. Milled it this afternoon. Should fit the vacuum chamber." He handed the part over. Dave thanked him, and Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. He was turning to leave, and then he saw me. His face broke into a wide, honest smile, and then his smile faded. He saw, past me, the scene at table 12. He saw my mother, standing up again, her face a mask of rage. He saw my father, his wallet still in his hand, arguing with Sal, who had come over to collect the still unpaid bill. He saw Megan, her arms crossed, glaring at me. He saw the two tired, confused kids. He took in the whole, toxic diorama in one, sweeping glance. He did not rush over. He did not pull me into a hug. He did not try to save me. He respected me more than that. He just stood. He moved from the center of the diner to a spot near the doorway, leaning his shoulder against the wall. He crossed his arms, his boots planted firmly on the tile. He wasn't intervening. He was present. He was a silent, solid wall at my back. His presence was an anchor, a clear, unspoken message: I am here. You are not alone. You have a place to go when this is over. Sal had had enough. "Sir," he said to my father, his voice no longer polite, "I am going to ask you to settle your bill. You are disturbing the entire restaurant." "My daughter works here," my mother snapped, as if this were a magical incantation. "Which is why I am trying to be extremely polite," Sal said, his patience gone. "You can either pay the check and leave, or I can move you to our private overflow room while you finish your conversation." He was giving them an out, a way to save face. My father, realizing he had lost the audience, grunted and finally threw his credit card on the table. "Fine, the overflow room. We're not done." "And Sal," I said, walking over as he ran the card, "could you grab the coloring books and some crayons from the back for Jason and Maya? They've had a long flight." Sal nodded, his expression softening as he looked at me. "Of course, Kennedy." He understood. The children were not combatants. They were just passengers. As my family gathered their coats and bags, shuffling in a cloud of furious silence to follow Sal to the small, sad room in the back, I saw Megan pull her phone out. She was walking behind my mother, texting, her thumbs flying, hiding the screen from my view. I was close enough to my mother to see her own phone light up in her hand as the message came through. The preview on her lock screen was visible for half a second, stark under the diner lights. It was from Megan. "Mom, that old guy on the patio is a VIP. He's rich. Stop fighting with Kay and pull him onto our side. He's plan B." My mother's head turned. She looked through the glass door. at the old man sipping his coffee, his profile silhouetted against the dark, her eyes fixed on the glint of his gold watch chain. She nodded, just once, to herself. A new, colder dread settled into my stomach. This was no longer just about Megan's debt. They had just found a new, bigger target, and I was the bridge. My family disappeared into the back overflow room, led by a tight-lipped Sal, the diner, suddenly free of their specific, chaotic gravity, felt enormous and quiet. The few remaining tables kept their voices low, trying to pretend they had not just witnessed a full-scale emotional evisceration. Marcus was still by the door. He had not moved in 20 minutes. He was a lighthouse, a fixed point, his presence a silent, unwavering statement, "I am here." He caught my eye and gave me a small, pained nod, as if to say, "You're still standing." I gave him one back. "I'm still standing." My shift was not over. I had work to do. My adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a cold, shaky exhaustion. I grabbed a bus tub. I had one table left to clear, the VIP table. I pushed open the glass door to the side patio. The air was cold, sharp, and clean. It smelled like dust and distant piñon smoke. Robert, the lawyer, stood up immediately as I approached. Mr. Alden Pierce remained seated, his back to me, looking out at the dark street. "Miss Long," Robert said, his voice precise and quiet, "we are ready to settle the check." "Of course," I said, my own voice sounding hoarse and distant. I started stacking the empty coffee cups and the small plate, the one that had held the pie. "Before we do," Robert continued, "Mr. Pierce would like to ask you one final, private question, if you would be willing. It is not about the situation with your family." I paused, the bus tub in my hand. My energy was gone. I felt scraped raw, down to the bone. A question. "Kennedy." It was Mr. Pierce's voice. He had turned, and his face, in the dim yellow light from the diner, looked ancient and exhausted. "Please, sit, just for 1 minute, if you are permitted." I hesitated. Marcus was watching me through the glass. My family was in the back room, a toxic cloud, plotting. But this felt different. This was not aggression. It was not a demand. It was grief. I set the bus tub down on an empty chair and sat in the cold, wrought iron seat opposite him. Robert remained standing, a few feet away, a silent chaperone. "When you told me your mother's name," Mr. Pierce began, his voice low and strained, "you said Laura. It confused me. I apologize again for prying. This is the last time I will ask. I promise you." He leaned forward, his pale blue eyes desperate, searching my face. Did Laura, ever use a different name? A name, perhaps, from when she was very young? Did she have a maiden name?" I stiffened. This was so intensely personal. The interrogation felt endless tonight. "My mother's name is Laura Long. My father is David Long. And before," he pressed, his voice almost a whisper, "before she was Long, what was her name?" The question hung in the cold, thin air. Why did this matter to him? I searched my memory, digging through the locked, dark rooms of my family's past. My mother hated talking about her childhood. It was a black hole, a forbidden topic. "She never talked about it," I said, my voice flat. "It was not a happy time. I think—" "Was it Pierce?" he whispered. The word was so quiet it was almost carried away by the wind. But I heard it, and I stopped. I physically stopped breathing. Pierce. It was a name I had seen exactly once. I was 16, looking for my birth certificate for a driver's permit. I had found, tucked in the back of a file cabinet, a folded, yellowed, brittle document, not mine, hers, a copy of her birth certificate, Laura Ann Pierce. I had asked her about it, just once. "Mom, who's Pierce?" Her reaction had been terrifying. Not just anger, but a deep, primal panic. a rage so sudden and violent it had shaken our house. She had snatched the paper, torn it to shreds, and screamed at me to never, ever go through her things again. To never say that name. I had never dared to mention it again. How did you know that? I whispered. My eyes locked on his. Mr. Pierce did not answer. His hand, shaking visibly now, went to his vest. He unhooked the gold chain. He pulled the heavy, smooth pocket watch from its tiny pocket. This watch, he said, his voice thick with an emotion I could not name, was a gift from my wife, Helen. She died more than 30 years ago. He turned it over in his palm. He clicked a small, almost invisible clasp on the side. The back of the watch popped open. It was a locket. He didn't hand it to me. He just turned it so I could see, holding it steady in his trembling hand. It was her, the woman from his wallet, the woman with my face, the young, laughing woman with the feathered 1980s hair. Her name, he said, his voice cracking, was Eliza Pierce. She was my daughter, my only child. I stared at the tiny, faded portrait. Eliza Pierce. My mouth went dry. My mother's mother, my grandmother, was named Eliza. The words felt strange, like I was speaking a foreign language. She was a ghost, a non-person, a name my mother had refused to acknowledge, a woman who had apparently died young. And your mother? Laura, he said, his eyes fixed on mine, is Eliza's daughter. It was not a question. It was a statement. The math clicked into place. The cold, clinical logic I used for my job assembled the data points. Building a hypothesis I could not bear. Eliza Pierce was his daughter. Laura Pierce was Eliza's daughter. I was Laura's daughter. My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a gasp that was half sob. Oh my God, that means you are. I am Alden Pierce, he said, his eyes finally overflowing, the tears tracing slow, painful paths down the lines of his face. I am your grandfather, and I made a terrible, terrible mistake. I let my daughter, your grandmother, walk away from me, and I never saw her again. The story came out, not in a rush, but in pained, halting fragments, a fight, the kind of stupid, proud, unforgivable fight that only happens between a stubborn, wealthy father and an equally stubborn, fiery daughter. She was in her early 20s, in love with a man he didn't approve of, a man with no money and no prospects. She left. He told her not to come back until she saw sense. He was an arrogant man. He said he was used to winning. He assumed she would be back in 6 months, maybe a year. When the money ran out, she never came back. She vanished. She had a child, my mother, Laura, in secret. And then, as I knew, she had died, terribly young, leaving my mother to be raised in a system of foster homes and cold state care, a past my mother had tried to burn to the ground and forget. I looked for her, Alden said, his voice raw. For decades, after my wife, Helen, died, I had nothing but money, and it was meaningless. I poured it into tracing her. I found scraps, traces. I found a charity she had volunteered at. Right before she passed, they had a small, grainy photo of her. It was the last one ever taken. He stopped, composing himself. Robert, the lawyer, discreetly handed him a clean white handkerchief. I kept funding that charity, he continued, wiping his eyes. In her name, the Eliza Pierce Fund. And then, 6 months ago, their internal newsletter went out to major donors, a community spotlight section. They were highlighting a new partnership, a clinical trial program. He looked right at me, his eyes full of a strange, fragile miracle. And there you were, a photograph, a small article about the new clinical operations specialist from Meridian Vitae, coordinating the program, Kennedy Long. I felt dizzy. The patio seemed to tilt. Meridian, the charity program, that was my project, the one I had used to pitch my move to Santa Fe. I saw your face, he whispered. It was her face. It was Eliza's face. I couldn't believe it. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. I thought I was a foolish old man, seeing ghosts. So you came here, I breathed, the words barely audible. I came here, he confirmed. Robert arranged it. I told him. Find out where she is. He found the diner. I had to see you for myself. I couldn't just appear. I had to know if it was real. I had to see if the resemblance was as strong as I thought. When I walked up to your table, I said, the pieces clicking. And you asked my name. When you said Kennedy, he said, a small, pained laugh escaping him. I thought my heart would stop. It was you. And then I lost my nerve. I thought, it cannot be. It is a coincidence. I am seeing what I want to see. I had to ask again. I had to be sure. I was terrified my own mind was betraying me. Forgive me. I just stared at him. A grandfather. I had a grandfather. A living, breathing, heartbroken grandfather who was sitting in front of me, crying over a 30-year-old mistake. I felt a sudden, powerful rush of something. Empathy? Shock. A profound, hollow sadness. But it was immediately followed by a wave of cold, hard caution. I flinched. I had just spent the last hour defending my bank account from a family that saw me as a wallet. And now, a new family member, a very wealthy one, had just appeared out of nowhere. I just couldn't open that door. I was too tired, too damaged. I could not be a resource for one more person. He must have seen the wall go up in my eyes, the skepticism, the fear. He immediately held up a hand. Kennedy, my dear, I am not here to ask you for anything. I am not here to buy your affection or interfere in your life. God knows. I have no right. He reached into his suit jacket. He did not pull out a checkbook. He pulled out a single, thick, cream-colored envelope and a small, embossed business card. I have, he said, his voice heavy. I have made a life of transactions. I was a man who built things, and I broke the only thing that mattered. He placed the envelope on the table. This is a letter. It explains everything, the whole, messy, terrible story. It is for you to read, or to burn. It is your choice. He then placed the business card next to it. This is an invitation, not for tonight, not for tomorrow, but for lunch, in a public place, if you ever wish to hear more, if you wish to ask me questions, if you wish to yell at me. The choice is entirely, 100%, yours. His gaze was clear and devastatingly sincere. I will not contact you again unless you use that card. You have my word. He stood up, his movements stiff and old. Robert placed the check and the leather billfold, the one with the $500, on my bus tub. The check is, of course, taken care of. Mr. Pierce looked at me, one last time. His eyes flickered to the back room, where my other family was hidden, and his face hardened. Family should not only remember you when they need money, he said, his voice quiet but clear. And that includes me. I have learned that lesson far, far too late. Robert nodded at me, a flicker of human empathy in his professional eyes. Miss Long, they turned. Alden Pierce, my grandfather, pushed open the diner door and walked out into the dark, cold Santa Fe night, followed by his lawyer. I stood there on the empty patio, the cold air seeping into my apron. The diner behind me was silent. Marcus was still at the door, watching me, his face a mask of confusion and deep concern. I looked down at the table, at the generous tip, at the embossed card, and at the thick, heavy letter, with just my name, Kennedy, written on the front in a strong, old-fashioned script. My hand was shaking as I reached out to pick it up. Through the glass, from my vantage point, I could see the door to the overflow room. My mother was peering through the small, wired glass window in the door. She had not seen the letter. She had not heard the conversation, but she had seen the gold watch. She had seen the embrace that never happened, the intense, emotional moment. She had seen the wealthy, well-dressed old man. I saw her face, even from that distance. It was the face of a gambler who had just seen a new, high-stakes table open up. Her plan B was no longer a theory. It was a target. I stood on the patio for a full minute, the cold seeping through my thin cotton shirt and canvas apron. The thick cream-colored envelope felt impossibly heavy in my hand, like it weighed 30 years. My grandfather. The word was clinical, absurd. A data point that did not fit my reality. I looked through the glass. Marcus was still there, a fixed point by the door. He was my reality. I slipped Alden's letter and the embossed card into the deep front pocket of my apron. They sat there, alongside the 2 crisp $100 bills, a strange, heavy combination of my past and my present. I picked up the bus tub, my hands moving on autopilot, and pushed back into the diner. The residual warmth of the room felt suffocating. Marcus met my eyes, his face etched with 1,000 questions. I gave him a tiny, imperceptible shake of my head. Not now. Later, he understood, his gaze shifting from me to the back room, his jaw tightening. I had barely deposited the bus tub in the kitchen when the door to the overflow room swung open. My mother emerged. The transformation was breathtaking. The spitting rage was gone. The icy fury had melted. She was now a portrait of grotesque, syrupy concern. Her face arranged in soft, tragic lines. She walked toward me, her arms slightly open, as if to offer a hug I had never once received. "Kennedy, honey," she cooed, her voice pitched loud enough for Marcus and Sal to hear. "We were just sitting in that stuffy little room, and we all feel just terrible about how this night went. Just awful." She stopped just short of touching me, a performance of respecting my boundaries. "That poor old man you were talking to outside. He looked so sad. Was he all right? He was here all alone." I felt the pivot instantly. This was not concern. This was reconnaissance. This was Plan B being activated. "He's a customer." "Mom," I said, my voice flat, deadened by exhaustion. "He was just finishing his coffee." "Well, he just seemed so distinguished," she pressed on, a calculating brightness in her eyes. "And he was so intent on you, so emotional. Why didn't you introduce us? We're your family. It's only polite." "I was working," I said. "My job is to serve customers, not to run a social mixer." This was the wrong answer. The mask of concern cracked, revealing the familiar granite underneath. "Your job?" she sneered, her voice dropping back into its familiar, venomous register. "Is that all you care about politeness I suffered for years raising you? Kennedy, I sacrificed everything so you could be whatever this is." She took a step closer, her voice a low, hissing indictment. "I endured things you can't even imagine." She spat. "A childhood in hell. And you can't endure a simple social courtesy for your own mother. You can't make one simple introduction." And now I know why. A cold voice whispered in my head. Because of him. Because of Alden. Because of the fight he had with Eliza. Her pain was real. I had just learned the source of it. But she had taken that pain and forged it into a weapon. The same one she now used on me. The cycle. Laid bare under the fluorescent lights of a diner. Before I could form a response, a warm, solid presence was at my side. Marcus. He had crossed the diner in 3 silent, purposeful strides. He wasn't looking at my mother. He was looking at Sal, who was wiping down the espresso machine. "Hey, Sal," Marcus said, his voice calm and normal, slicing through the toxic air. "I just came by to drop a part for Dave. I didn't get anything. But," he pulled his wallet from his back pocket. "Can I pay for that coyote that got broken, put it on my tab, or I can settle up now?" Sal shook his head, his respect for Marcus clear. "It's handled, man. But thank you. Seriously." "You sure?" Marcus asked, turning to me, his smile soft, and for my eyes only. Kennedy looks like she's about 2 seconds from clocking out and sleeping for a week. He turned back, and then, so quickly my mother almost missed it. He placed his hand on the small of my back. It wasn't possessive. It wasn't proprietary. It was supportive. It was a silent, tactile reminder I am here. You are not leaning on nothing. I am the ground beneath your feet. The warmth of his hand through my apron was the only real, grounding thing I had felt in hours. My mother saw the gesture. Her eyes flickered to his hand, then back to my face. This was an asset she couldn't control, a variable she hadn't accounted for. "We are trying to have a private conversation here," she snapped, glaring at Marcus's hand. "This is not a private room, ma'am," Sal cut in, his voice sharp. He was done. He threw his cleaning rag into a bin. "This is my dining room. You need to lower your voice, or you need to leave, period." My father and Megan emerged from the back room, drawn by the new confrontation. Megan, seeing Marcus, the competent, handsome boyfriend, immediately deployed her primary weapon, tears. "Please," she whimpered, dabbing at her dry eyes. "Everyone, just stop fighting." She looked at me, her eyes wide and wet. "Kenny, this is about the debt. I know it's a lot. I know I messed up." She took a shaky breath, aiming her next words straight at my heart. "But think about the kids, Jason and Maya. If I'm ruined, if I lose the house, what happens to them? They'll suffer. They'll be the ones who pay the price for my mistake." It was a brilliant pivot, a masterstroke of emotional manipulation. She wasn't asking for herself. She was asking for the children, the ultimate human shields. I looked at her, at the calculated performance. I saw the strings. "Do not do that," I said. "Do what?" she asked, her voice pure, wounded innocence. "Do not put Jason and Maya in the middle of this." My voice was as cold and sharp as the desert night. "They are not collateral. Your debt is your debt. Their well-being is your responsibility, not a bargaining chip to use on me. The children are not part of this negotiation." My mother, seeing the children tactic fail, seeing Sal's rigid stance, and seeing Marcus's protective hand on my back, lost her footing. Her carefully constructed plan was collapsing on all fronts. She panicked, and in her panic, she revealed her entire, unvarnished strategy. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, gesturing angrily, not at me, but at Marcus, arguing over this $40,000, when that old man just left. He looked incredibly wealthy. "Kennedy, why are you protecting him from us? He could solve this in a second. You should have made the connection." There it was. The words echoed in the nearly empty diner. Connect us. It was no longer just about my apartment. It wasn't about my promotion. It wasn't even about Megan's debt. It was about my access. I was a tool, a bridge, a resource to be leveraged. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see my mother. I saw a desperate prospector, stripped of her tools, furious that I wouldn't lead her to a new, richer vein of gold. They would bleed anyone dry. Me, Marcus, a perfect stranger. It didn't matter. As long as the bill got paid, as if summoned by the universe, my phone, which I'd left charging behind the bar, buzzed. Sal glanced at it. "It's an Aunt Laurel," he said, holding it up. I retrieved it, my hands shaking. A text. "Honey, your mother called me. She sounds frantic. Did the old gentleman, Mr. Pierce, find you? Are you okay?" So, Aunt Laurel had been the unwitting scout. She had lit the fuse. I typed a reply, my thumbs clumsy. "He was here. It's complicated. I am safe. I am handling it. Please don't engage with Mom. I'll call you tomorrow." I hit send. As I did, a new email notification popped up. The sender was Robert J. Finnegan, Esquire. The subject Alden Pierce, follow-up. My heart hammered. I opened it. It was brief, formal, and deeply respectful. "Dear Ms. Long, by Mr. Pierce's request, I am forwarding my contact information. He wishes to reiterate that he will not initiate further contact. The decision rests entirely with you. He is deeply grateful for your time this evening. Please be well. Attached was a V-card, a digital business card, 2 flanks, my old family, here, demanding, a new family, distant, waiting, both wanting something. Right, my mother said, clapping her hands with a sharp, impatient sound, pulling me from the phone. This place is closing. We're all exhausted. Kennedy, grab your things. We'll follow you home. We need to see the apartment and talk this out properly, in private. My father and Megan were already moving toward the door, picking up their suitcases, which they'd left stacked near the entrance. I stared at the luggage. They had never intended to go to a hotel. They had intended to land, to come to the diner, and to move in, a full-scale occupation. This was the final move, the attempt to get me on their turf, in my home, where they could break me down, away from Sal, away from Marcus, away from the public. I looked at the suitcases. I looked at their expectant, angry faces. No, no, my father barked. What do you mean? No, we're coming with you. Where are we supposed to sleep? The street. My shift ends at 10, I said, pointing to the clock on the wall. It was 9:55. I am going home, with Marcus. You, I said, my voice final, are going to a hotel. We don't have a hotel, Megan wailed, the tears suddenly real. We spent our money on the tickets to save me. You can afford a hotel, I said. I pointed to the POS machine where Sal was still standing. You paid your dinner bill. You have credit. Sal can recommend the Holiday Inn down the street. It is clean, and it is safe. I am not sleeping in a Holiday Inn, my mother shrieked, as if I had suggested a dumpster. Then that is your choice, I said. We are not talking about this tonight. We are not talking about this in my home. We will talk, I continued, setting the final, immovable boundary. Tomorrow morning, at 10 a.m., at the Silver Kettle Cafe, downtown, it is public, it is neutral, and I will have 1 hour. The ultimatum hung in the air. Ungrateful, my mother whispered, her face pale with fury. You are a cold, ungrateful, selfish girl. We came here for help. And you throw us out. You throw your family out. I didn't respond. I walked past her, past all of them, to the staff room. I untied my apron. The heavy envelope from Alden, the embossed card, and the cash. I transferred to my purse. I took off my work shirt, pulling my own sweater back on. I felt like a soldier removing battered, bloody armor. When I came out, they were still standing there, a strange, lost herd of angry ghosts. Sal was on the phone, his back to them, likely calling the hotel, or perhaps a cab. Marcus was waiting for me by the door, my jacket in his hand. He held it open for me. As I slid my arms in, he leaned in, his voice a low, warm murmur. Just for me. Your car is out back, right? I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. They're going to follow you, he said. They're not going to take no. So, here's the plan. You walk out that door. You get in my truck. I'm taking you to my place. I'll come back for your car tomorrow. He squeezed my shoulder, a gesture of absolute solidarity. But if they try to block you, if they raise their voice, if they put one hand on you, you just say the word. I will call you an Uber, and I will handle this. You are not alone in this. Kenny, do you understand me? I looked at him. This man, who asked for nothing, this man who saw my strength, not as a resource, but as a virtue. I understand, I whispered. I zipped my jacket. I picked up my purse. I looked at my family, huddled in the center of the diner, their faces a portrait of entitlement and rage. 10 a.m., I said. Silver Kettle. Then I turned, put my hand in Marcus's, and walked out the door, leaving them, for the first time in my life, to handle their own check. I slept at Marcus's place. It wasn't a romantic, passionate night, it was a necessary, strategic retreat. It was a clean, quiet space that smelled like his soap and the metallic, oily scent of his workshop that clung to his clothes. It was a place where no one was demanding anything of me. I showered, borrowed a clean t-shirt, and slept for 6 solid, dreamless hours. I woke before the sun, my mind sharp, clear, and cold. The emotional storm had passed, leaving behind the hard, clean bedrock of my resolve. While Marcus made coffee, I sat at his simple wooden table. I took out my laptop. I didn't just have the envelopes. I was a clinical operations specialist. I dealt in data. I created protocols. I opened a new document. I created a timeline, date, request, my action, cost time, cost money, family response. It was a log, a case report, December 2019. Emergency fulfillment for Megan's store, 4 days PTO, approx. 32 hours labor, flight credit lost, $180. Response. Thanks, Kenny, you're a lifesaver. June 2020. Emergency childcare, 6 workdays 5 sick, 1 personal, $600. Project deadline missed. Formal warning. Response none. March 2021. Loan for pop-up shop, $600. Response none. July 2021. Text re-promotion. Response read. No reply. September 2021. Text re. Move to Santa Fe. Response. Don't get sunburned. I printed all 3 pages. I folded them neatly and put them in my purse, next to the heavy, unopened letter from Alden Pierce. Marcus drove me. He didn't ask what my plan was. He didn't offer to speak for me. He just grabbed his own jacket. "You're not walking in there alone," was all he said. The Silver Kettle Cafe was downtown. A bright, airy space with high ceilings and local art on the walls. It was 10 a.m. on the dot. It was busy. The air smelled of espresso and baking bread. It was aggressively normal. And it was very, very public. They were already there, in a perfect, unspoken triangle. My family, mom, dad. Megan had claimed a large, circular booth in the back, opposite the door. They looked rumpled, furious, and sleep-deprived. They had the aura of people who had spent the night in a cheap hotel, arguing. By the wide front window, sitting in the bright morning sun, were Alden Pierce and his lawyer, Robert. They were at a small, 2-person table. They were not looking at my family. They were nursing coffees, and Alden was reading a newspaper. He looked calm, rested, and deeply sad. And in the exact center of the room, equidistant from both parties, was a single, empty, 4-person table. My table, the stage. I took a deep breath. "Okay," I whispered to Marcus. "Showtime." We walked in, every head turned. My family tensed. Alden Pierce looked up from his paper, his eyes finding mine. He gave a small, respectful nod, then immediately looked back down, granting me the space. I did not go to my family. I did not go to Alden. I walked to the center table and sat down. Marcus sat beside me. I placed my purse on the table in front of me. The waitress, a young woman with turquoise earrings, came over. "Coffee." "Yes, please," I said. "Black." "Same," Marcus said. I waited until she had poured the coffee and left. Then, I looked at the booth. My mother was vibrating with impatience. I was the one who spoke first. My voice was clear, low, and did not shake. "We are here. This is the hour you get. Let's be very clear about what is happening. No more games. No more guilt." I looked at my mother, my father, and my sister, one by one. "Today, we state, out loud, who owes what, and who expects what, and then we are done." My mother leaned forward, her voice a low, furious hiss. "We expect what any family would help your sister is $41,800 in debt. She needs it. Now, you have this beautiful apartment. You sell it. It is that simple. We are not leaving Santa Fe until you do." There it was, the opening salvo, unchanged. I am not selling my home, I said, my voice just as quiet, just as firm. So you'd see your sister ruined, my father growled. I see her facing the consequences of her own business decisions, I said. I reached into my purse. I pulled out the 3 folded pages I had printed that morning. I did not slide them. I did not throw them. I stood up, walked the 10 feet to their booth, and placed the timeline on their table, on top of Megan's hands. You're right, Mom, I said, loud enough for them and only them to hear. Let's talk about what's owed. Megan looked down, confused. She unfolded the pages. I watched her face as she read the timeline. I watched her scan the list of my services, my labor, my money. I watched her eyes pass over the dates of her own silence. What is this? My father snapped, grabbing for the pages. More of your invoices I told you last night. Keeping score is sick. My mother didn't read it. She just balled up her napkin. Why are you bringing up all this? This old history, she demanded. It's petty. We are talking about a crisis now. Who cares what happened 2 years ago? I do, I said, returning to my seat. I picked up my coffee cup. I care. Because that old history is the data. It is the reason I no longer trust you. It is the proof that family is a one-way street for you. You only drive it when you need to pick something up. From the corner of my eye, I saw Alden Pierce. He had lowered his newspaper. He was not staring, but he was listening. His face was a mask of pained comprehension. He was hearing, in my words, the echo of his own daughter, Eliza. He was watching the cycle repeat, and his own culpability in it was written in the lines around his eyes. Megan, seeing the timeline was a tactical failure, shifted. She looked past me, her eyes landing on Marcus. Her voice became soft, pliable, and desperate. Marcus, she said, a small, pathetic catch in her voice. Please, you're a practical man. You have a business. You have a workshop. Surely you understand. Debt, risk. Can't you just loan us the money? A temporary loan? You could co-sign. Help us. She'll listen to you. Marcus had been silent. He had been a supportive, quiet presence. He had been letting me handle my own fight, but now he had been tagged in. He had been invited, by my sister, to become the new bank. He didn't look at her. He looked at me. Then he turned his head and looked, for the first time, directly at Megan. His voice was not unkind. It was just absolute. Megan, he said, I build prototypes for surgical tools. Every dollar I have, I earned with my own sweat, my own hours, my own risk. My money is not, and will never be, the Kennedy Family Emergency Fund. This conversation is not with me. He picked up his coffee. The dismissal was total. Megan's face crumpled. She had played her last card, and it had failed. My mother, however, was just getting started. She had seen Plan B walk in and sit by the window. She was done with me, done with Marcus. She was aiming for the whale, but before she could speak, before she could create a scene, the lawyer, Robert, stood up. He did not walk to my family. He walked, his footsteps silent on the cafe floor, to my table. He stood, formal and respectful, his hands clasped. Miss Long, he said, his voice just for me and Marcus, though in the quiet, it carried, Forgive the interruption, Mr. Pierce and I will be leaving shortly. My mother's head swiveled. She was on high alert. He asked me, Robert continued, to convey one thing. He has reviewed his estate planning, and he wishes to make significant amendments to his will. The word hung in the air. A multi-million-dollar bomb. Will. I saw my mother's eyes. They didn't just light up. They ignited. The pupils dilated. She stopped breathing. This was it. This was the jackpot. This was the reason for all of it. I kept my face perfectly, clinically blank. Mr. Finnegan, I said. That is a private matter for Mr. Pierce. Indeed, Robert agreed, his expression unreadable. He wishes to discuss it with you. He will not proceed with any changes, especially those that would directly concern you, unless you agree to meet with him, privately, to discuss your own wishes. He will, as promised, abide by your decision. He was offering me a kingdom, and he was doing it, deliberately, in front of my family. I held his gaze. I understood the strategy. Alden was testing me, and he was giving me a shield. As I said to Mr. Pierce last night, I said, my voice steady, that is a conversation we can have at a later date, privately. Thank you for the message. Robert nodded, satisfied. Very good. Miss Long. He turned and went back to his table. My mother could not contain herself. The $41,000 debt was forgotten. This was a much, much bigger number. She stood up from the booth. A will? She said, her voice a strange, high-pitched quiver. He's talking about a Will Kennedy. What? What is going on? Who is that man? He is a customer from the diner, I said, sipping my coffee. Don't lie to me, she shrieked. The entire cafe was now openly staring. He's not a customer. You were outside with him for 20 minutes. He's talking about an inheritance. She put the pieces together, her desperate, greedy mind working at lightning speed. The debt, Kennedy, the $41,800. It's nothing. It's nothing to him. She walked over to my table, her hands grasping the edge. Go to him. Tell him. Tell him about Megan's crisis. He'll help if he's putting you in his will. He'll help. It's a rounding error for him. My father and Megan were on their feet, too, standing behind her, a small, desperate phalanx. Ask him, my mother begged, her voice now a grotesque parody of a plea. Tell him to help your family. Just call it an advance on the inheritance, an advance on the inheritance. The words were so nakedly parasitic, so utterly devoid of dignity, that something inside me finally and completely snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the floor. I looked at my mother, at her grasping hands, her frantic eyes, at the bottomless, gaping need that defined her. No, Kennedy, be reasonable. My father started. No. My voice was louder now, sharp with a cold, final rage. I am not a bridge to his bank account, and I am not, and will never be, a down payment. I looked at my mother. You want his money? You go ask him for it yourself, but you will not use me to do it. I looked at my sister. You want $40,000. You earn it, like I did. I threw $5 on the table for my coffee. I am not for sale. My dignity is not for sale. And my future, I said, my eyes landing on Alden Pierce, who was watching me with a look of profound, devastating pride, is not an ATM for your short-term debt. The cafe was dead silent. The only sound was the hiss of the espresso machine. We are done here, I said. I grabbed my purse. Marcus, let's go. I walked out of the Silver Kettle Cafe. Marcus right beside me. I didn't look back. The bright, high-noon sun hit me like a physical blow, and I was blinking, my heart hammering like it was trying to escape my chest. My family. They were still in there. My mother was probably already trying to get Alden's attention. They're not done, Marcus said, his voice a low, grim statement of fact as we reached his truck. I know, I said. Miss Long Kennedy. We both turned. It was Alden. He and Robert had left the cafe right behind us, but they hadn't followed. They were standing by an immaculate, old but perfectly kept sedan. Alden looked pained, his face pale. I am ashamed, he said, his voice carrying on the dry breeze. I am ashamed that my presence has brought this new level of distress to you. That was the last thing I ever intended. It's not your fault, I said, my voice weary. They see dollar signs. You, me. It doesn't matter. We're just numbers. I am leaving for New York this evening, he said, taking a step closer. Robert stayed by the car, a silent, respectful guard. But I cannot leave. I cannot. I have one last request. Not for money, not for forgiveness, for an hour, this afternoon. I tensed. Marcus put a hand on the truck's door. Ready. There is a small historical library. Downtown, Alden said, speaking quickly, as if he knew his time was short. It's where my family's territorial records are kept. The old Pierce mercantile ledgers from when Santa Fe was new. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. It is not a will. It is not an estate. It is just history. It is where Eliza's name is written. I want to show you. I want to tell you the story. The real one, not the version you heard in there. He was offering me context, not a check. I looked at Marcus. He just watched my face. This was my call. I looked at the old man, his shame and his hope warring in his expression. 1 hour, I said. 2 p.m. He nodded, a look of profound, fragile relief passing over him. Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you. At 2 o'clock, I walked into the hushed, dusty quiet of the Fray Angelico Chavez History Library. Marcus was with me. He said he'd wait in the research annex. Just reading about old aqueducts. He was giving me space, but he was not leaving me alone. Alden was in a small, sunlit room, a long oak table in front of him. There were no lawyers, just him. On the table were 3 massive, leather-bound books. They were ancient, the pages yellowed and brittle, covered in a precise, swirling script. These, he said, his voice a reverent whisper, are the business ledgers from 1885. He pointed a single, trembling finger at a line. Pierce Mercantile, imports, silver, turquoise, wool. He turned a few pages. And there, in a different hand, a lighter, more feminine script. Ledger entry, Eliza Pierce, summer, 1982. She was working for me, that summer, he whispered. She was brilliant. She was going to take over everything. She had my head for numbers. But my wife's fire. And then, he told me the story. The real one. Not the fragments. The man my grandmother, Eliza, had fallen in love with. He wasn't just poor. Alden had discovered he was a con man, a fraud. He had proof. He confronted Eliza, not with concern, but with rage and an ultimatum. He called her a fool. She called him a tyrant. She told me my money had poisoned my soul, Alden said, his eyes fixed on the empty page, lost in the memory. And I told her she was nothing without that money, that she would come crawling back in 6 months. His voice broke. She said, "Watch me," and she walked out. That was the last time I ever saw my daughter. My anger, my unfinished anger. It turned into a lifetime of silence, a lifetime of being right, and being utterly, devastatingly alone. He was quiet for a long time, the only sound the dust motes dancing in the shaft of sunlight. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the letter, the same one from last night. I hadn't opened it. He placed it on the table between us. That, he said, is my apology. It is not an excuse. It is the full accounting. I am not asking you to forgive me. Kennedy, I have no right to ask you for anything. I am asking only for a chance to make amends, not with money, but with actions. If you will have me. I sat there, in that quiet room, the smell of old paper and sunlight around me. I finally understood. I understood the anger in my mother. It was his. It was the same proud, terrified rage, passed down, a poisoned heirloom. I started, my voice thick. I don't know what to do with this. I just got free. From one family. I cannot be a new wallet for another one. I looked him dead in the eye. My own protocol, my own terms and conditions. If this is going to happen, in any way, you have to promise me. You have to promise me that your arrival does not turn me into a prize, into a bank, that they... I gestured. to the world outside. Don't get to see me as your new project. I need family with boundaries, ironclad. Or I can't. I'd rather be alone. He nodded, his eyes clear and absolute. He had been waiting for this. He understood this language. That is the only way this can work, Kennedy, he said. I agree, 100%. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a different folder. It was slim, professional. Which is why I want to show you this. My action, my reparation. It is not for you. He opened it. It was a proposal, a draft. The Eliza Pierce Scholarship Fund. He explained. It was a fully endowed annual scholarship administered by the Community Foundation in Santa Fe. It was not for me. It was for young clinical operations coordinators, just starting their careers in New Mexico, people like me. It was a way to honor Eliza's fire and my precision, without ever putting a single dollar in my hand. It was a gift to the community, in our family's name. It was clean. This, he said, his voice firm, is how I will spend my money, publicly, in her name. It is not attached to you. You do not have to endorse it. You do not even have to acknowledge it. It is just what I am going to do, to honor the legacy I broke. I looked at the document. It was dignified. It was real. It was not a bribe. It was right. It was a way to mend the past without buying the present. I nodded. Just once. A single, slow acknowledgement. I could accept this. This, I could live with. The moment of peace, of clean, sharp resolution, lasted exactly 10 seconds. My phone, on the table between us, buzzed, and then buzzed again, and again. A string of frantic, machine gun texts. It was my mother. Kennedy, your phone is on. I know you're seeing these. We are at your apartment. The man at the front desk won't let us up. This is ridiculous. Tell him to let your family in. We have our suitcases. We are not playing this game anymore. Kennedy, we are sitting in the lobby. We will wait here all night. We are coming in. I went cold. I pulled up the app for my apartment's lobby camera, and there they were, my mother, my father, Megan, and their luggage, 4 suitcases. They hadn't just come to talk. They had come to squat, to lay siege to my home, to my life, until I caved. The Holiday Inn had just been a temporary setback. My hand was shaking, not with fear, with a rage so cold and pure it was almost silent. Marcus walked in from the annex, drawn by the sudden, violent shift in my posture. Kenny, what's wrong? I showed him the phone. I showed him the live feed of my family. Encamped in my lobby, Alden Pierce stood up. He had seen the texts. He had seen the look on my face. They are at your home, he said, his voice flat with disbelief. Marcus looked at me. He was calm. He was the engineer. Where? He asked, his voice quiet. Do you want to end this? Kennedy, right there, in your lobby, or on our terms. I looked at the phone, at their expectant, entitled faces. I thought of my apartment, my nest, my quiet, safe place. They were trying to poison it, just by being near it. No, I said. Not there, not in my home. I looked at Marcus, and my resolve hardened into a diamond. I'm ending it where it started, where they first showed their hand. I'm ending it at the diner. I picked up my phone. I dialed Sal. Sal, it's Kennedy. I have an insane favor to ask, I explained, quickly, clinically. They're at my apartment. They won't leave. I need a place to have this final conversation, a neutral ground. Can I please use the diner, that back corner room, the one you put them in last night? There was a pause. Kid, Sal said, his voice rough. The diner is closed for a private party from 6, but you know what? Screw it. The party can wait an hour. You get here at 5. The room is yours. I'll be there. Thank you. Sal, you have no idea. I hung up. I looked at Marcus. "I'm going to the diner." "I'm coming with you," he said. I would like to come, as well." We both looked at Alden. He was pale, but his voice was firm. He was buttoning his suit jacket. "I started this," he said. "My fight with my daughter. It created this desperate, grasping need. I may not be able to fix your mother, Kennedy, but I need to witness this. I need to see this through. And," he added, his voice hardening, "I need to be there, so they understand, unequivocally, that I am not an option. That the bank is closed, if you will have me." I nodded. "Okay, 5 p.m. I went back to Marcus's apartment to prepare. I didn't get my old envelopes. I didn't need the old evidence. This was a new transaction. I went to his desk, and I took a single, blank sheet of printer paper. I folded it, crisp and sharp, and put it in my purse. It was the final invoice, a blank check, a clean slate, at 4:45. The three of us drove to the Coyote Sage Diner. The sky over Santa Fe was turning a deep, bruised purple, the same color as the night before. But a wind had picked up, cold and sharp, rattling the street signs. We walked in. Sal was waiting. He had the lights dimmed, the main room empty, the corner room, the one with the broken coyote, was lit. "They're on their way," I said. I had texted my mother one simple message. "Diner, 5 p.m., last chance." I walked to the kitchen pass. The small silver service bell was there, gleaming. I touched the cold metal. All my life, that bell had been ringing, summoning me to serve, to fetch, to pay. This time, I thought, as I heard the front door of the diner swing open, bringing a gust of cold wind and the sound of rolling luggage, this time, I decide who pays. The front door of the Coyote Sage pushed open, and the cold, high desert wind rushed in, carrying my family with it. They did not just walk in, they occupied. My father and Megan rolled their 4 suitcases across the terracotta tile, the rhythmic, hollow thump of the plastic wheels echoing in the empty diner. They were an invading army, here to claim territory, their faces set in grim, entitled lines. "Put the bags there," my mother commanded, pointing to the wall. "Jason, Maya, sit in the booth, now, and be quiet." The children, exhausted and pale, scrambled into the corner booth, their eyes wide and fearful, and Megan, my sister, had her phone out. She was not texting, she was live streaming. Her face was already arranged in that familiar tragic mask, her eyes glistening. "Hey everyone," she whispered, panning the camera across the dim, empty room. "We're here. We're finally reuniting with my sister. It's been so emotional. We just need her support right now. Please pray for us." She was building a narrative. She was creating public pressure, weaponizing her followers before I had even spoken a word. Sal, Marcus, Alden, and Robert stood near the bar, a silent, supportive phalanx. I did not look at them. I walked straight to the booth where my family was arrayed. Megan's phone camera immediately swung to my face, the little red recording light glowing. I ignored it. I reached into my purse. I pulled out the single, blank sheet of white paper. I placed it in the center of the table. "What's that?" my father demanded, his voice a low growl. "More of your paperwork. We're done with that." "It's today's invoice," I said. My voice was calm, clear, and it carried in the silent room. "Last night, I brought the old invoices, the ones you ignored for years. This one is for today. I've left it blank, so we can write the truth." Megan's camera zoomed in on the paper. What are you talking about? Kenny?" She sniffled, playing to her audience. "We just want to talk." I put my hands on the table, palms down. "I have 3 items I need paid," I said. "Not with money, with a commitment." I tapped the paper. "Item 1, respect. You will respect my home, my work, and my partner. Item 2, honesty. You will stop lying, stop manipulating, and stop performing for a camera. Item 3. Boundaries. You will never, ever show up at my home or my job unannounced again. I looked at my mother, my father, and my sister. If these 3 items are not paid, in full, today, then no, there will not be one single dollar, not for the debt, not for anything, ever. My mother's face, pale from exhaustion, turned a deep, mottled red. She slammed her hand flat on the table, making the silverware jump. "How dare you!" she shrieked. "Respect boundaries. You owe us. You owe us for the food we put in your mouth. You owe us for the roof over your head, for 18 years. We raised you. We paid for your college. We are your family. You don't get to invoice us." "You're right," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You did those things. You are my family." I reached into my purse again. I pulled out one of the old printed screenshots from last night, the text I sent about my promotion. "Then where were you?" I placed it on the table. This was the text about my promotion. Read. No reply. I pulled out another. "This was my birthday, 2 years ago." Read. No reply. I pulled out a third. "This was me, terrified, the night before I moved to Santa Fe. Alone." Read. No reply. This is when I needed a family. You were not here. You only showed up when you needed a bank." My father's anger seemed to drain away, replaced by a gray, weary desperation. "Kenny, please," he said, his voice hoarse. "Your mother. We're sorry. Okay. We're proud. We're about to lose everything. The house, Megan's. It's all falling apart. We're asking for help. Losing is a consequence, Dad," I said, my voice softening but not yielding. "It's the result of risks you took, of not planning, of depending on a bailout. I am not your insurance policy. I am not your safety net." Megan, seeing the narrative was failing her, that I was not the villain, turned her camera. She physically swung her body toward the bar, pointing the lens at Alden Pierce. "Sir," she called out, her voice high and pleading. "Sir, please. You look like a good man, a kind man. Can't you see what she's doing to us? Her own family. She's quoting rules while we are drowning. Can't you help us talk some sense into her?" The room held its breath. Alden Pierce looked at the phone. He looked at Megan, and then he stood up. He walked slowly, deliberately, from the shadows of the bar into the light of the main diner. He was not looking at Megan. He was looking at my mother. "Madam," he said, his voice quiet but echoing with a lifetime of authority, "I have spent the last 30 years trying to fix a wound with money. I am here to tell you, it does not work. It does not heal the invisible cuts." He turned his gaze, full of a profound, specific sadness, to my mother. "I am a man who made a terrible mistake. I drove my own child away with pride, and ultimatums, and anger. I am the reason there is a hole in this family. I came here today. I came here last night, to ensure I did not repeat that mistake with this generation." He then looked at me. His eyes were clear, and full of an emotion I could not yet name. "This is not my decision. This is not my money. This is Kennedy's life." He turned back to my family. "The decision, the power, is entirely hers." That was it. The shield, the validation. I took a deep breath. "Sal," I called out, "can you cut the music, please?" Sal nodded. He hit a switch. The quiet background jazz of the diner vanished. The only sound was the hum of the ice machine and Megan's panicked breathing. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out my apartment key, the small silver key to my front door. I placed it on the table, on top of the blank invoice. It shined under the single spotlight over the booth. My family stared at it. It was what they wanted. Access. "This," I said, "is what you came for. The key to my life. The key to my home, my future, my bank account." I paused, and then slowly, I picked the key up. I closed my fist around it. "And you will never have it. I slipped it back into my pocket. No one gets to walk into my life uninvited, ever again. I pushed the blank piece of paper toward my father. This is the deal, right here, right now. This is a commitment. I pointed to the paper. You will sign this. You will sign your name to a promise that you will respect my boundaries, that you will never show up unannounced, that you will never demand money, that you will never slander me, or Marcus, or anyone in my life, to get what you want. I laid Sal's pen on top of it. You sign this, I said. And you leave. You take your suitcases. You go back to Ohio. And we can begin to talk, on the phone, about what a new relationship looks like. You do not sign. You leave. You go back to Ohio. And we are done. You lose my number. You are no longer my family. This is the last and final offer. Megan laughed, a high, hysterical sound. You're insane. You're actually insane. She was losing control. You'd divorce your family. Fine what? What do we get if we sign this stupid paper? Will you give us the money? Will you give us? 10,000, 5,000. It is not, I said. About the money. Then it's about nothing, she shrieked. No. Alden's voice cut in. He stepped forward again. He was holding the folder from the library. The scholarship proposal. He did not give it to my family. He walked to me, and he placed it in my hands, in full view of everyone. This, Alden said, his voice loud and public, for Megan's camera, for my family, for the world, is the Eliza Pierce Scholarship Fund. It is my public, legal commitment. I am endowing it in my daughter's name to support the community of Santa Fe. It is not a wallet. It is not an inheritance. It is a promise. He looked at me, his eyes full of warmth. I respect your boundaries. Kennedy, this money will not touch you. It will only, I hope, honor the legacy you share. Checkmate. My mother understood. She saw the folder. She heard the words, public, community, endowed. She understood, in that single brutal moment, that that bank, was permanently and publicly closed to her. The fantasy of the inheritance, the advance, the easy fix. It evaporated. Her hand, the one she had slammed on the table, began to tremble. She looked at the blank paper, at the commitment. She looked at my father. My father picked up the pen. His hand was shaking. He looked at me, his eyes full of a terrible, bottomless shame. I'll sign it, Kenny, he whispered. I'll sign. He put the pen to the paper. Don't you dare, my mother hissed, snatching his wrist. Don't you dare. We are not, begging her for scraps. Laura, it's over. My father yelled, the first time I had ever heard him raise his voice to her. It's done. Just sign the paper. No. They were fighting, yelling at each other, right there in the booth. Megan was crying, her live stream forgotten. The phone pointed at the ceiling. The kids were wailing, terrified by the raw, unleashed anger. The facade had shattered. The chaos was complete. I waited. I watched them tear at each other for a long, silent moment. Then, I reached over. I took the blank sheet of paper. I took the pen from my father's limp hand. I folded the paper, still blank, and put it in my purse. So, I said, my voice calm in their storm. That's the answer. We're done. They stopped. They all stopped and stared at me. I looked at Sal. I gave him a single nod. He already had his phone in his hand. I'm calling 2 cabs, he said, his voice loud. To the airport. I picked up my purse. I did not yell. I did not cry. I did not make a speech. The transaction was complete. The bill had been refused. The account was closed. The kitchen service bell, the one on the pass, dinged. Sal had hit it by accident as he turned. A single, clear metallic note that cut through the silence. Order up. I turned and walked away. Marcus fell in step beside me. Alden Pierce was standing by the door. As I approached, he looked at me. His eyes filled with a lifetime of regret. and a new, fragile hope. He opened his mouth, as if to hug me, as if to say 1,000 things, and then he stopped. He saw the look on my face, the look of a woman who had just fought a war and was, finally, standing on her own. He smiled, a small, sad, and deeply proud smile, and he took one single, respectful step back. He stepped aside, clearing the doorway, leaving me to stand alone, in the center of the frame, bathed in the red light of the diner's exit sign. I was the last one standing, the only one who got to decide my own future. Thank you all so much for listening to my story. Please, drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from. I would love to connect and hear your thoughts. Remember to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and give us an extra boost by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.